All right. So in today's episode, I want to talk about a very serious issue that keeps coming up. Seems like most of the conversations I'm having right now with agents is around a couple problems, or I would call symptoms. And we're going to get to the root cause of these symptoms in today's episode. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because, just like I mentioned, in the last, I don't know, half dozen coaching calls I've been having, it seems like agents are dealing with the same thing over and over and over and over again. Some of those are things like dealing with listings that aren't selling because the sellers won't budge on the price. And so agents are having to deal with the stress of that all the time of, hey, how do I get this listing sold? Or agents are setting multiple listing appointments every single week on a consistent basis, month over month, but they always fall through. The sellers are canceling the appointments, and so their listing appointment set to met ratio is very, very low. They're able to set an appointment with a prospect, but they can't actually go on the appointment itself. Or agents are having extremely long conversations on a prospecting phone call, taking up tons of time that those conversations don't lead anywhere. So we're going to talk about why that is and then what to do about it, most importantly. So the root cause of this, and when I say this, you might say, yeah, duh, hello, that's obviously the issue. But I want to go to a level that is deeper than that to really understand what's happening. So the root cause is that most of us are spending too much time, energy, effort with unmotivated prospects, unmotivated sellers. Now, again, you might say, yeah, I get that. That's super obvious. Right. But I want you to think about three big ideas and what to do about this and how to identify which prospects are worth your time and which just simply aren't. So the first big idea is that motivated sellers don't move based on home prices or interest rates. Now, listen, I know that most of you are dealing with people to say, listen, I'm not doing anything until interest rates change or prices go up or whatever the case may be. And some of you are bought into that being a reality. Well, let's test that theory for a second. Here's how I want to challenge you and every other real estate agent. I want you to think back to every closed transaction that you've ever had in your career. And I want you to think about how often it was that you sat at a closing table where you got a commission check, where the seller's pure motivation to move was based on what a mortgage interest rate was or was not. It was never the case. It was never the case that you actually got to a closing table. Now, I understand you might have conversations, you might even have meetings of people wanting to move, but I'm talking about somebody who's actually gone through a very difficult process of moving, as you all know, of getting their house on the market, showing it to strangers, going through multiple showings, going through the offer process, the inspection, the appraisal, the entire process, sat at a closing table, and they did it because of the interest rate. No, I think that the reality is, and I think you would probably agree with this, that if you thought about every closed transaction, what you would come up with is people had a specific reason why they made the move, a specific reason why they made the move. So the first thing I want us to talk about is what does motivation actually mean? Because we know it doesn't mean interest rate or prices. Yet we get into these conversations and we're having meetings with people around doing something or not doing something around price or interest rate. So let me share something with you that I share with a lot of my coaching clients. All right. So when we talk about prospects being motivated or not being motivated, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what does motivation mean? We have to break down motivation. So the way I do this with my coaching clients is by a simple acronym that we call DART. Okay. D stands for desire. Does the prospect want, or in other words, do they have the desire to move? Do they want to make the move? A stands for ability. Do they have the ability to make a move? You see, a lot of people want to move, but for whatever reason, they don't have the ability to move. Maybe it's because their kids are in a school district and they can't make a move until this time or that time, or they're in a situation where they don't start the job until a certain time frame, or they're just in a situation where maybe financially they lost their job, so they've got to stay put. They'd like to move, but they can't qualify for a new mortgage. There's a lot of reasons around ability as to why people maybe not have that ability to actually make a move. So we're breaking down motivation. So far we talked about, do they have the desire? Do they have the ability? And then do they have specific reasons on why they're making the move? So this is the what. This is the why. And the last one is time. When? And when we look at these, so going back to reasons, again, I think that if you were being honest and you started to ask yourself, okay, let me look at all the closed transactions, what you wouldn't find under reasons why was I moved my family because of mortgage interest rates. That's why I did it. No, that's not why you did it, right? And so we look at this and we break down motivation. You say, okay, I understand. Now, there's 4 parts of motivation. Does the person want to actually make the move? Do they have the ability to make the move? Do they have a specific reason on why they want to make a move? And do they have timelines as to when they want to make a move? That's the first big idea in this conversation. It's my belief that our job as real estate salespeople is to uncover whether or not the prospect has motivation specifically around the 4 categories that we just talked about, to determine if there's an appointment to be had. Because the second big idea is this, that most unmotivated sellers are typically, not always, but typically the ones that you and I have the best conversations with. These are the prospects where setting what seems to be a listing appointment comes easy. And why is that? Because the more experienced real estate agents, rather, have turned away unmotivated prospects, leaving you with the crumbs. So in other words, as you're prospecting, the prospects that are typically the easiest to talk to, have the highest willingness to talk to you, they're really nice to you over the phone, they invite you to their house really simply without a lot of skill needed, are typically prospects with the lowest motivation. Because all of the experienced agents had either met with them or listed their property or had a conversation with them and determined that they don't have motivation. So therefore, people with low motivation tend to find more desperate agents. The agents that are willing to do the things that the more experienced agents are not willing to do, which is to list properties, go through the entire headache of listing a property for sale on the open market, going through all of the expense, overprice it with bad terms with an unmotivated seller. Only inexperienced, desperate, needy real estate agents behave that way. And so therefore, when if a seller or a prospect is very, very keen on, yeah, come on over. If you think you can get this sold, we'd love to have you over. Well, you have to be aware that it's likely that prospect is so open to that because they've probably already dealt with a lot of experienced agents who were willing to tell that person the truth. And you're the eager, desperate, needy realtor. Oh yeah, we can get you that price. No problem. Come on over. We'd love to have you over. And what we find often is the exact opposite is also true. That the more motivated a seller is, the more difficult it is to get that appointment. Sometimes the conversation is more difficult to have. So we have to really focus on, okay, am I going through the motions of just setting an appointment just to set an appointment? Or am I setting appointments with prospects that actually want to move? It's a massive difference because we want to feel good about our prospecting efforts. We want to feel like we're not spinning our wheels. Maybe we're comparing ourselves to other agents, saying, well, he's setting all these appointments. I need to get some appointments set as well. So then the focus comes off of, hey, I'm going to meet with people that actually want to move, to checking a box. I got a lead. I got an appointment today. I'm going on an appointment today. Because we have this false sense of security to say, listen, I've got all these appointments, but maybe that's part of the issue. And then the third big idea is to do exactly what we're talking about, which is to reshift your focus from talking prospects into selling and talking them out of it. Let me explain before you say, what are you talking about here? All right. So here's the exercise that I would encourage you to do. If you're able, if you can grab a piece of paper, I'm going to have you, or you can come back and watch the replay. I'm going to have you draw a line down the middle and a line at the top. And what I want you to write on the left-hand side is change. And then on the upper right quadrant, I want you to write stay the same. All right. All sales is the facilitation of change. That's all sales is. It doesn't matter what your product or service is. In this context, obviously, we're talking about real estate sales. We're talking about a massive change, right? Somebody changing the way in which they live, changing from one home to another home. It's a massive change. That's all sales is. The problem is the way in which most of us were trained is to sell in a way that would seemingly present an argument for why the person should change. And what I mean by that is this. So as the eager real estate agent, salesperson as you are, you're making all the arguments to the prospect for why they should change. So we say things like, if you can get the price you want, would you consider moving? If you can get the terms you want, would you consider moving? The market right now is extremely good. And so you should take advantage of that. And there are, you can go on and on and on for all the arguments that we make for why the person should make the change. What do we know now? And I talk about it quite often on the channel. What do we know about human beings? When they are told that they should do something, they respond often with all the reasons and why they should not. This is psychological reactance. So when we tell them about all the reasons on why they should do something, we're met with all the reasons why they should not. Is that fair? They go into the opposite category. The prospect goes in the opposite category, and they make the argument for why they should stay the same. You say price, and they say, well, yeah, but you know what? I don't know if we can get our price. And, after thinking about it, I'm probably just going to wait until prices go up. Or I'm going to wait for the market to shift. You make an argument for why they should based on X, Y, and Z, and they give you a counter argument. That's just psychological reactance at play. We're always met with resistance, but I'm going to teach you something to flip that around, to invert that, so that when you're met with resistance, and you always are met with resistance, you turn the prospect. Now listen super close. I'm going to teach you how to turn prospects' resistance into having the prospect uncover their motivation for themselves. So I'm going to teach you a way of asking questions that's based on the reverse selling methodology that would allow you to elicit what we would call self-persuasion. In other words, people don't do things for your reasons, which we just talked about, okay? These are all the realtors' reasons. They give them all these reasons on why they should make a move. Well, no one's going to do anything based on your reasons. People decide to do or not to do for their own reasons. Our job as great salespeople is to ask questions in a way that would elicit self-persuasion. In other words, their own reasons for motivation. How do you do that? Well, we're going to invert this entire process that you've been taught. Now, I know this is going to be super different. I know this is going to be super uncomfortable. I know this is going to be super like, wait a minute, I got to figure this out. So here's what we're going to do. And the agents that really have mastered the reverse selling methodology that I've taught them have much better conversations and only deal with people that are super motivated because they've mastered the art of eliciting self-persuasion. Here's how you do it. So rather than asking questions for or posing questions for why the person should make the change, I'm going to have you start to make and position your communication and make arguments for why the prospect should stay the same. And you're going to say, "What? Wait, what? I'm paid on commission. What do you mean stay the same? You're asking me, Brandon, to ask questions and communicate in a way for the prospect not to move? Yes, I am. And let me show you what happens. Let me give you the best example. What if you were to ask a question to a prospect to elicit their own motivation in their own words, and instead of giving them all the reasons on why they should make a move because the market this, the market that, what if you asked them this, Mr. Prospect, and you made an argument for why they should not move, and you said, Mr. Prospect, what's wrong with where you live now? I mean, it looks like a beautiful home. What don't you have now that you would want in a new home? I mean, is it just an option to stay put? And watch what happens. You'll start to get responses. We just said you're always going to be met with resistance. Now the resistance is going to be yes, but. And they're going to start listing off all the reasons on why they cannot stay the same and why they must move. So if you were to ask a prospect, listen, you've got a beautiful home. Why not just stay put? First off, this right from the get-go does something that none of your competitors do, which positions you in a way in the prospect's mind that the perception is that you're speaking against your own interest, and therefore it's for the client's best interest. You're a commissioned real estate salesperson. You're telling them not to move. Well, how do you get paid? You only get paid if they what? Sell a house and you get paid a commission. In this case, in this line of questioning, you're saying, don't pay me. Why don't you just stay put? The motivated seller says, well, Brandon, I'd love to stay put, but the thing is, my wife is pregnant and she's with triplets. We cannot stay here. We'd love to stay here, but we've got to get something bigger. Now who's doing the selling? Now it's the prospect verbalizing their own motivation for specifically why they want to move. You see the difference? And so when we're communicating with prospects, it's like, well, why? Let's do another one. Why go through, I'll just write this one out, the headache? I mean, selling is extremely difficult. Why go through the headache? Well, you're right. I mean, I wish we didn't have to, but blah. And they give you all the reasons for their own reasons and their own words to you why they must do something. You see, you're still being met with resistance, but the resistance shows itself in this manner as a defense for their motivation. You're going to be met with the resistance no matter what. You might as well ask a question or pose a question for the status quo. For them to not do anything. It goes against your interest, so you must be somebody that they can trust. You're saying, listen, just stay put. Why go through the headache of listing the property? Why go through all of this? It's a nightmare. There's nothing for sale. The inventory is low. Listen, I charge a lot of money. Why not go with an agent that charges less commission? Well, you see, Brandon, I mean, last time we did that, we went with an agent that charged less. It was a shit show, quite frankly. So we want to deal with a professional, not because of what they charge, but the results they get. Ding, 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 ding. Who's doing the selling now? You see, if you can focus on speaking against what seems to be against your own interest, you can build respect, trust, most importantly, and the easiest way to build rapport with a prospect. because you're coming across like you don't need anything from them. Certainly you want their business, but you don't need anything. And most importantly, we're talking about in this video how to elicit motivation. How do we know if we've got a motivated prospect or not? Well, we have got to get out of this world of convince mode. We've got to get out of the world of I'm going to try to talk this person into this thing, and I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm actually going to spend time on communicating why the person shouldn't do anything. And I'm looking for the prospects who push back on that. That, my friend, is how you will know if you have a motivated prospect or not.